Hey everyone, we're about to start. Cameras on, please. Make sure you have your cameras on, everybody, please. Cameras and pointed at you. Cool. So this morning I had to deal with agency. So, Edith is here and Arlene. So you guys are gonna hear it all over again. Now it's the New Jersey portion of it. All right. So, everybody can hear me well. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. Lula made it. She's in. There you go. So you guys know, never mess with Lula again. Never mess with Lula again. She was about to fight me over the phone, trying to log into Zoom. She says, Zoom is the issue. No, Bruno, you are the issue. Like, she was insulting me over the phone as I'm trying to get her into the class. It was horrible. You guys don't even know. Right. Anyway, so the lies she says. Sometimes, just so you guys know, I just had some issues now trying to help. I took a little bit longer to get here. Trying to help Lula get in. Sometimes even me, like I'm trying here to get everybody going, and sometimes Zoom just either updates or plays tricks on me. Like it's crazy. I don't know what they do, but thankfully most of the times we're good. Thankfully, but sometimes I do have to help people log in or figure something out, and it's Zoom. What can we do? All right. So thank you for your patience, everyone. It's Lula's fault, but thank you for your patience. And we're about to start. So, you guys have any questions? Ahmed says Zoom is upset because they had a 25% drop. Maybe. You know why? Because Meets and so Google Meets and Teams, they all upgraded to have almost the same resources as Zoom as well. So yeah. So and they're a more popular platform because it's right from Microsoft or right from Google. Zoom has to compete with those two. It's tough. But yeah. All right, we got Cheryl on. We got Rose on YouTube. Anybody else there? Let me know. All right. Tina says it's asking me for a code. You too? All right, Tina, call Lula. She knows everything about. No, just kidding. All right. um, let's see. Tina, do you have WhatsApp? If you do, send me a message, please. I'll send you the link. But if you go to Tina, if you go to the membership site, it's right there also, the meeting ID and the password. Okay, if you go uh, to the student portal, it's right there. Make sure you are logged into to Zoom. That's important. I don't know if they did an update or not, but some people apparently are having issues. Like I said, Lula just had the same issue that you're having right now. Yesterday, what was it yesterday? People could not join because of the audio, right? That was the issue. I'm telling you, Zoom playing tricks on us. All right, Lula says I missed yesterday because I got a root canal and I almost died. Well, I have to say this, Lula. I have to say this. I'm glad you didn't die, but who plans a root canal the day of a class? Like, that's more important, root canal in the middle of a class. You're about to have a whole 4 days off. It was an emergency. I don't care. Class first. Class first. I know how it is. I had one too, not too long ago. All right, so Dina, tell me you're able to log in. I'm just waiting on you. People on the on YouTube, they're like, I'm so glad he doesn't see me. He just picks on those Zoomers, right? But it is. Zoomers suffer. Yes, Zoomers suffer. Lula's like, yep. All right, Tina was able to log in. Great. Francesca says you had to put the passcode as well. Raise your hand, just so I know, so I can advise to the next class. Did you have to put a passcode as well to get in? You all did? I'm telling you, must have been something that Zoom did, because the link, guys, I'm going to show you right now real quick. The link here, the one that I put for you guys, I try to make it so easy. Already includes, if you see, includes the password. It's encrypted, but includes a password. Every time I put it there, I try to make it as easy as possible for you guys, so we don't interrupt the class like this. You know, trying to everybody join at the same time, make the class smoother. But yes, it can't do much against Zoom. It has to be. I don't know. Ahmed says the link did not generate correctly. Possibly. Weird. Fix something. I guess other people are having issues too, because we're missing quite a good amount of people. I see where the problem is. Gotcha. It was not Zoom. I'd admit our mistakes when we have them, right? It was not Zoom, guys. And I appreciate it, Mr. Badur, for making that comment, because it made me go check. There's just one little tiny thing that's missing from the link. Unbelievable. One little tiny thing. Give me one quick second. I'm correcting, so whoever was trying to join will be able to join. And YouTubers, I'm sorry, just give me one more minute. We'll start pretty soon. If you guys check the WhatsApp group, I'm not the one that shared the link, but okay. But yes, it could have been me. It could have been me, and because it was my assistant, it's still me. No matter what, I have to take the blame. No matter what. Right, and that is it. Boom. Yeah, it was the equal sign. I'm telling you, it's one little tiny thing. So annoying. Okay, I'll just share it in the WhatsApp group. Facebook group, and we're good to go. Boom. Okay, cool. All right, we lost somebody on YouTube. We got 2. It's okay. 3. Okay. So now we got to correct the link, and hopefully people will start joining. But the issue is that the password, look right here, like I was saying, it was this. This is the link. And I give you guys the link already with the password. This little thing was missing. The equal sign. One tiny thing. All right, the same thing as the state exam that I always tell you guys. One tiny thing could change the whole meaning of the question. Well, one tiny mistake, right, got you not to log in. Now here's the good news, for me at least, my safeguard here, is that I always provide the meeting ID and password. So if you put the meeting ID and you put the password, it would have worked. It's just that the link is for you to click and join. That's what it is. So it makes it a lot easier. But I give you all the options. So go ahead. What's your excuse now? Just saying. I give you so many options. I mean, this class, you guys are spoiled. You have everything. All these resources. Right? I can guarantee that a lot of other schools do not provide the resources that I do. Guaranteed. Okay? Oh, Cheryl, thanks. Cheryl just goes, he's telling the truth on this one. Like, and Rose agrees. On this one, we don't know about everything else, but on this one, he's telling the truth, guys. Bruno is telling the truth on this one. Great. I did, Lula. I did admit I was wrong. Yes. And Jen, as usual, hello, I'm driving. And buying my turkey while driving. She has the most amazing comments. And Francesca says, you're correct. They don't offer anything. Francesca, unfortunately not for you guys, probably won't be available, but I have so much more coming up. It's unbelievable the things that we're preparing. All right, so while Jen is buying her turkey, guys, we're gonna move forward, and this is a review. Okay, pretty much as I keep on saying, the New Jersey portion is a review of the national portion, just with a few kinks that Jersey has are specific to Jersey. If you are doing another state, you're going to find some things that are similar. Unfortunately, I cannot talk about different states when we're in the New Jersey portion. I will mention a couple of things that if I know about it, that are relevant maybe, but it doesn't apply to your state, what we're doing right now. So if you're from a different state and you're looking for something specific, this is not it. We're doing New Jersey. The cool thing, so I think Cheryl, you mentioned you're taking to New York. The cool thing is Jersey and New York have a lot of similarities in terms of laws, but yes, there's still one or two things that are completely off. All right, so let's see what we got. Oh, by the way, Cheryl, you can always chime in and ask questions. They are New York specific, and maybe I can answer. If it relates to Jersey, it will help our class as well. All right, cool. So, turkeys aside, New Jersey agency and business practices. Question, and by the way, those of you that did this morning class, do not answer. What does agency mean? Brandon, I'm sure your little guy can answer this one. Go ahead. What does agency mean? Have him answer. Cheryl answered. Okay. not going to tell you guys what Cheryl's answer was. Yet, at least. Brandon, correct. Absolutely. Boom. This is the answer. All right? That is right there, agency. Come on, guys. What is the answer? Agency. What do you guys think? Agency. All right? You're talking about Brandon? All right. Really? Only one person answering correct? Or answering, I mean, I know Brandon got it right. But this, let's translate what's here. Yep. Employer-employee relationship. Very good. That's what Cheryl answered as well. Why employer-employee relationship? Well, because for agency to exist, that means you are an agent. For you to become an agent, that means somebody hired you. You guys remember that? I know it was a long time ago. It was chapter 11, okay? But very, very important you guys understand this. For you to exist as an agent, because you can exist as a salesperson, not as an agent. As an agent, that means you represent somebody. Who do you represent? The client. The principal. You guys remember that? Principal? Right? That's what this is. And believe me, this chapter, which was the chapter I gave this morning, chapter 11, and this chapter, which is state specific, is heavily, heavily tested. Between this chapter and business practices, for instance, it's roughly 20 to 30% of the exam just in questions surrounding agency and what you should do for the seller if you represent them, what you should do for the buyer if you don't represent them. So make sure you guys include these in your heavy reviews, like the really 100% focus reviews. Include these chapters, agencies. So chapter 11 for this book. If you're using the Dearborn version, then it's chapter 3 on the Dearborn version. 13th edition, 14th edition is the same. Chapter 3. But make sure you guys focus on that. If you have a different book, a different, for the YouTubers, but if you have a different book and you like me to pinpoint which chapters that will be in the state exam, which chapters should you have the extra focus based on the majority of the questions, right? Not sole focus, but extra focus. Just tell me which book are you using, and I will figure it out for you, okay? So you can always reach out to me. You guys have my number, 908-418-8325, and tell me, hey, Bruno, this is the book I have. Where is agency, or where is business practices? Or even if you try the state exam, send me your score report, and I'll try to help you pinpoint where the problem is. All right? So back to this. Agency, employer-employee relationship, because you got hired by a seller or you got hired by a buyer. Let's talk about different relationships. Oh, okay. No, it was me. Apologies. I got so distracted with Lula in the beginning that I forgot to address the questions that Mr. Vador put here. All right. So now, root canal aside, let's go to Zoom issue aside. Let me just address these before we go into agencies. Sorry, guys. So Mr. Vador asked questions, and no, you did not miss it. I didn't address them. Okay. You can blame Lula for that. Okay. And Tina. The latecomers, right? So here you go. It says, question number 1. John is a newly licensed salesperson who is discussing employment with Cedric, the entertainer. Now, as they discuss the employment agreement, they are deciding whether John should be an employee or independent contractor working for Cedric. If John becomes an employee, which one of the following would apply to him? So that's the question. So we're trying to contemplate whether they're going to be employee or independent contractor, but now they're asking specifically if he becomes an employee instead of independent, which one of these would apply to him? A, receiving vacation time. B, paying his own Social Security tax. D, working under the IRS safe harbor guidelines. C, or D, working under little of Cedric's. It's written like that? Little of Cedric's control. And you want to know why not little, Cedric? Okay, so when we're saying under little of Cedric's control, meaning not too much control. See, here's the thing. Yes, the answer is A, perfect. And why is the answer A versus this? Okay, if you're an employee, you're under full control of Cedric. If you're independent, there's minimal things that I can require of you, barely anything, right? Under little of Cedric's control. You got it? So the only thing that you can have here, look, Social Security taxes, you pay your own when you're independent. You are under the IRS safe harbor guidelines, guys. If I mentioned to you that you can deduct a bunch of stuff and even pay less taxes than somebody that's a W-2, right? And Cedric, the broker, has minimal control over you. So the only one that qualifies here, the only one that would qualify is that you might receive paid vacation time where, as a broker, I cannot pay you vacation time because you're not an employee of mine. Can I send you on vacation? That's different. But it's not paid vacation time, like you're taking the time off and we're paying for your salary. That's what it says. You got it? Good. And Cheryl just answered, receiving paid vacation time, that's an employee benefit. Okay? So little Cedric has nothing to do with this. And I could have taken this in a totally different way. But luckily, it's only Tuesday. Right? Today's Tuesday. So we'll keep it clean. All right, next. Developers selling interstate properties must provide buyers with A, home warranty. B, property inspection. C, escrow protection. Or D, 5 days to rescind the purchase agreement. Can you walk us through how it works in the transaction? You want me to walk you through it? You have to be here for me to walk you through it. Anyway, so if it's interstate property, guys, what are we talking about? Is it properties in the state of New Jersey or properties out of the state of New Jersey? Out of the state, right? So if it's out of the state, this first thing right here is out of it. Because it's not 5 days to rescind the purchase, it's 7, if you guys remember. So they trick you, right? So process of elimination. Home warranty, we're not saying that it's a brand new construction. We just said developers selling interstate properties. Brand new constructions require a home warranty. Property inspection, look, no property inspection is a requirement. You can waive the inspections. The requirement for inspection is from the buyer or potentially the mortgage company, depending on the type of loan that you're getting into. So again, by process of elimination, the only thing you have is escrow protection. And what is escrow? Third-party account. So you have to provide out of these every single contract, interstate or not. So that's the tricky part. Interstate or not, every single contract must have a protection to escrow monies because it's not your money. That's what it is there. Right? So Rose, no, not a warranty. It doesn't say it's a brand new property. What? Jen, did you buy the turkey yet before you can ask a question? Today, the qualifier for you to ask questions is to buy turkeys. So Jen is asking, what happens when too many buyers waive appraisals? I don't know. Because it's that Today I got hit with so many, like, I'm not calling it ridiculous, or your question, Jen. I'm saying today I got so many ridiculous questions that usually I don't, right? And I was talking to Cheryl, right? Cheryl, we're talking about that. Couple of questions that I'm like, they're really asking that in the. This is for the New York. They're really asking that for the New York state exam. That is crazy, right? But anyway, today I'm getting crazy questions. Now, logically, why would buyers waive appraisals? They can waive inspections. Waive appraisals, it's the mortgage company again. So mortgage company always asks for it, for an appraisal to be done. If you're buying cash, you can waive appraisals. But your question is, what happens when too many buyers waive the inspection? I mean, the appraisal. So here's the thing. I mean, too many buyers, that means different properties. That it's different market. It's one of those questions where I don't see where it would lead to. The necessity of an appraisal is to figure out if the property is at market value or if the realtor had the right values as well when he put that proposal, that offer, right? So the only thing I can see is some type of discrepancy in the open market if there's no appraisal. If I waive the appraisal, that means that I can ask for whatever I want, right? And the buyer goes like, hey, I waive appraisals, let's move forward, right? So I'm not seeing, Jen, give me more, whatever you can figure out. Guys, always try to give me specific questions as much as you can remember, because sometimes that's an answer, not a question, right? And or maybe they're doing something just to throw you off. So I'm not 100% sure what the answer, the question itself might be, or what the answer, right? So here we have specific questions that I can address. Random, limited questions are difficult for me to address. If I remember right away the question in the state exam, I'll tell you, look, this is what it is. This particular one, like, what happens if too many buyers waive appraisals? It's uncommon. If a buyer waives inspections, most common. A lot of buyers waive inspections, especially if it's an investor. He just wants to get the property, fix it, rehab it, and just get rid of it. Okay. So next question was, and again, oh sorry, Jen, nothing wrong with your question because I get a lot of these. Today, Cheryl and I went over a few questions. It's the same thing. I need more details in order to be able to answer. It's just, and you guys as well. Sometimes you ask me questions. Vanessa, I see Vanessa's there. She asked me a particular question that she found in the state exam, and I'm like, wow, that question popped up. Right, in over 5 years of teaching the same course, that particular question she asked me today never popped up. In the practice, maybe. In the state, never seen it. So they're constantly changing, and I have to adapt to that. So I appreciate when you guys bring these questions from state exam, then I can adjust to that. But try to remember as much as you can from it. Like something that you got stuck on that's that bad, like you're like, oh, I remember this. Try to get as many details as you can so I can address it properly, okay? And I really, really appreciate that again, okay? So the next question is, broker salesperson requires 150 hours, while broker employer or sponsoring broker requires 225. The answer is nope. Both of them are 150 hours from the moment they're salespeople, and both of them are 225 hours if you are just starting. So, Mr. Badur, if you want to be a broker salesperson, you need to be a salesperson first, which is what you're doing, 75 hours. Later on, 3 years later, you're eligible, so you require another 150. That is true whether you want to be a broker salesperson or you want to be a sponsoring broker. But if the question, so the total is 225, but if the question says, Mr. Badur, you're already a salesperson, right? You're already a salesperson, and you have 3 years of full-time experience. How many hours do you need of coursework or education to become a broker? Well, it's just the 150. Okay? The qualification for broker salesperson or for broker employer are exactly the same. The difference is, do you choose to operate as a salesperson, or do you choose to open up your own office and sponsor people? It's a choice at the end. The requirements are exactly the same. Okay? Too much going on. All right, let's see. There's more questions. Yes, in that question before, it's the same as the equal sign. If you don't pay attention to the little details, forget it. Literally. Okay. Another question. All right, which of the following is a requirement for broker salesperson license applicants? Okay, so that's what the question you're asking right now. That's what it was, based on this. Okay, so which of the following is a requirement for a broker salesperson? So, what we need to do here again is based on process of elimination. Based on process of elimination. So if there's no other option, you know that this would be, for instance, a correct answer. It's 150 hours. But it's either your broker salesperson or broker, period. It's the broker qualifications, not the salesperson qualification. So by process of elimination, do you need to be 21 years of age or older? No, you need to be 18. By process of elimination, this is so close. You need to have 3 years full-time experience as a full licensed salesperson, and then referral to throw you off. If that's what you have in the question, referral to throw you off. That's that equal sign again. That's a little control thing again. Referral. They sneak it in there, and you're like 100% sure. 3 years full time. C. Nope. Referral. See? Rose just fell for it. Rose said C is the answer. Nope. Referral. You cannot be a referral. You have to be an active salesperson, not a referral, because you have no experience in real estate if you're just referring. Okay? Here, obtain a sponsorship of a New Jersey broker prior to licensure. This one could be an answer. Right? This one could be an answer. But the thing is, as a broker salesperson, this is a valid answer. If it said broker, well, then you don't need a sponsorship because you are the sponsor. You're just opening up your own business. So B could be a correct answer as well. You cannot activate your license as a broker salesperson unless you have a sponsor. Again, let me just show you. Broker salesperson. That means you operate under somebody else. You understand? You operate under somebody else. Can you activate your license just like that? No. You need to be sponsored by a New Jersey licensed broker. Okay. What was the correct answer you had there? What happens when a brand new house doesn't appraise? Question from Ed. Okay. Cheryl, no, it could say, so an associate broker is a broker salesperson. So Cheryl's asking, again, it depends from state to state what they call. Like there's realtor associate and there's realtor. But Cheryl's asking, wouldn't they say associate broker or salesperson instead of broker salesperson? So from state to state, it might change, yes. Okay. But broker associate, that means you're an associate of the broker of record. Okay. Edward's asking what happens when a brand new house doesn't appraise. Okay. So if just like brand new house or old houses, it doesn't matter. If they don't appraise, then depending on the mortgage company or the type of loan you're getting, you will not get the loan. You have to come up with a difference. So is it possible that the property does not appraise and you have to walk away from the deal? Sure. This is why it's so important that you guys not be experts, right? Not be experts, but it's very important that you guys have basic understanding of valuations. So when you do your CMAs, the comparison market analysis, right? When you do your CMAs, you're able to say, this property is worth X amount of dollars. So buyer, the offer you're trying to put, I think you'll go through, right? So a lot of realtors, what they do, especially in the beginning, if you're brand new, a lot of realtors, what they do is they rely on the listing agent's price. So listing agent says, I want $700,000 for this house, right? On behalf of my clients, the seller. And then the buyer's agent goes like, ooh, 700, right? That's a good value. I think it's a brand new construction. It might be a good value. If you have no experience in the area, I can build $1 million house. But if I build a $1 million house in the wrong neighborhood, and this I'm talking about in terms of house values, not I'm talking about neighborhood like people, right? But if it's in the wrong neighborhood, if the neighborhood, all the houses there are 250,000, Ed, they're 250,000, all of them, then do you think your property is going to be worth $1 million? No, it brings down the value. So building something new doesn't mean it's going to be worth $1 million. You have to understand the market that you're in. So if it doesn't appraise, you can walk away, or you can put up the difference, like come up with more money out of pocket, or you can do what's called a BPO or BOV, if you guys remember. That's broker's price opinion or broker's opinion of value. They mean the same. And yes, you can try to appeal the value. You can dispute the appraiser's response, right, or report. Are you going to be successful? It depends. This is why developing the skills of understanding markets and also developing the skills within a particular market versus the whole New Jersey. This is why it's so important, because a house, a brand new house in Newark will not have the same house, same design, same everything, will not have the same value in Atlantic City. You will definitely not have the same value in Alpine. You will not have the same value if it's in New York, if it's in Texas. It's the same house. You guys understand? So it's very, very important that as soon as you can, you start narrowing down and focus on a particular area, because that's how you will grow. When somebody comes to you and say, yeah, this brand new house, I'd say 650 as an example. Instead of the 700, I'll say 650. That's the value. So buyer put an offer based on 650. And you already almost know, almost 100% sure that it will appraise. If you're iffy about it, then maybe it's not going to appraise. All right? These are questions to always ask. I had a situation here with one of our agents. Is a renovated house, and the seller wanted $670 for it. When we looked at it, comparables and all that stuff, $630 at best. So that's a $40,000 difference. $630 at best. Appraisal came in at $619 or something, $620. Right? So even $10,000 lower than what I thought. So I could be wrong too, right? Luckily, we were able to appeal, we were able to dispute, and I don't know, they switched appraisers, and all of a sudden 670 is okay. Like, oh my God, how do you go from, like, I was baffled by it. How do you go from 620, right, to 670 from one appraiser to another? So yes, can you appeal? Sure. No, there's no kickbacks on this one. I know for sure because I know who the mortgage person is. But anyway, you're joking, but it could be. But can you appeal? Yes, and you might be successful. Like I said, this just went from 620 value to 670. Is it going to happen all the time? Probably not. If it's a $10,000, $15,000 difference, yeah. If it's a $50,000 difference, that's going to be tough. And we almost lost the deal. So just letting you know right now, we almost lost the deal. But the mortgage company, the appraisal gave the value at one point based on the information that was provided from the city. So it kind of helped as well, but still. Anyway. All right, guys. Can we start today's chapter? We're good? All right, cool. We only got 2 chapters to cover, so it's okay. We got until midnight. It's not a problem. Right? All right, make sure your cameras are on, please. Cameras. Let's go. Agency relationships, different types of agencies that we have. Different types of agencies that we have. We have buyer's agency, we have seller's agency. You guys remember this? We have disclosal agency, and we have transaction broker. So we're going to use this as reviews. Seller's agent. What does that mean? It means we represent the seller only. And our fiduciary duties are only to the seller. Can we tell the buyer that the seller just lost his job? That's why they're selling? No. Okay, great. If you represent the buyer, that means you represent only the buyer. Single agency, right? Represent only the buyer. Can we tell the seller that the buyer has more money than the offer that they're putting in? If you represent the buyer? No, you represent the buyer. So you have to keep certain things confidential. The buyer's best interests. Okay, very important. What about in dual agency or disclosed dual agency? Right? Mr. Badur, you now know that it's disclosed, right? Don't forget, as you can tell. Disclosed dual agency. What happens here? Who can tell me what is a disclosed dual agency? We only have one person. I hope everything is okay on YouTube. But what does it mean, disclosed dual agency? All right. Ahmed says represent both. Francesca says represent seller and buyer. Brandon says tell all parties, both sides. Anybody else? I was about to say, Edith, you can participate now. I know I stopped you earlier, but now you can. Represents the seller and the buyer. But how can we represent the seller and the buyer? Isn't that a conflict of interest? So yes, you represent both. But isn't that a conflict of interest? Okay. Ahmed says it must be on paper, question mark. So you're not sure? You're sure? You just put the question mark to make me ask? Okay. All right, got it. Celine says, where both parties knowingly are represented by one person. Okay. Good. Francesca now goes, not if they both know. What does that mean, Francesca? Let me look here on YouTube. Agent for both the seller and the buyer where both have agreed in writing, says Cheryl. Rose says, not if they both agreed. So what are you saying, guys? You're saying it doesn't have to be in writing if both agree? Not understanding. What is the not if they both know? Francesca, you're saying it doesn't have to be in writing? On the contrary, you need to confirm. You need to confirm in writing. Must be in writing, guys. What do you mean if both agreed? How do we know that they agreed. Guys, first of all, first rule of engagement for realtors. Ready? Always have it in writing. Didn't I mention this the other day? Didn't I mention this? Even if you have a phone conversation, follow up with a text message, follow up with an email. That's the preferred method. Right? Follow up with something in writing, because hearsay, which is pretty much he said, she said, that's what it is very difficult to prove in court. So if you guys want to represent both parties, you have to disclose to both the relationship that you represent one side or the other, and you must obtain written consent. Must be in writing. Cheryl, perfect. If it isn't in writing, it did not happen. Yes. Okay? So not only must it be disclosed verbally, right? Must be disclosed verbally and put in writing. Sure, Francesca. Saw the save? Saw the save? Hold on. Let me show you. I'll show you everybody. Like, YouTubers, check this out. Not if they both know. And I ask, what do you mean? She goes like, in writing. You don't have to put in. No, that's what I meant by in writing. Have to disclose and put in writing. You guys think you're smart, huh? All right. Here's the cool thing I keep on saying. Now is the time to make mistakes. Because this is where I can correct you before you get to the exams, right? When you're in the exam, there's nothing I can do, right? I appreciate it, Francesca. They'll be more specific next time. But now's the time to make mistakes. Now's the time that I'm here to help you. To kind of like, if you're falling, I'm like, okay, try to push you back up. All right? This is why I keep on asking you guys to interact and participate, because I'll try to take all the doubts that you guys might have. All right? So disclose dual agency. Put it in writing. You are required to explain to both parties how the dual representation will affect the fiduciary duties owed to them. For example, the agent will not be able to put the party's interests above the other one party's interests above the other party's interests, and will not be able to counsel one party on the best way to obtain an advantage over the other party based on confidential information that the agent knows about the other party. Right? To disclose one party's confidential information to the other party, such as the highest price that a buyer is willing to pay, the agent must obtain express permission from that party. So if the buyer expressly tells me, Bruno, tell the seller, I know you represent both of us, tell the seller that I'm willing to put $10,000 more. Cool. Mr. or Mrs. Seller, the buyer is willing to put $10,000 more. Now I can express it. Until I get that permission, can I relay any type of information like that to the seller? No. All right, so got to be very clear about it. Conflict of interest often enters into the agency relationship. See, an agent is required to put his or her client's interests first. However, in a dual agency, it is difficult to put the best interest of both clients first. For example, a seller's agent aims to sell the home for the highest price possible, while the buyer's agent is negotiating or trying to negotiate the lowest price possible. Dual agency puts the agent in a position of not being able to negotiate the price or contract terms. All I can do is help you go all the way through and disclose as much as I legally can to you. That's all. Okay? All right, Mr. Badur has a question. Yeah, that's exactly what we said. Ahmed says, if the buyer says they have more money, right? If you this is in dual agency. This is in dual agency because you represent the buyer as well, right? So you have to protect the buyer's interests, right? So you have to get specific permission from the buyer to give that information to the seller. In the same token, if the seller says, look, I know we listed for 300. If somebody offers 290, I'll take it. You cannot tell that to the buyer, even though you represent the buyer. But if the seller specifically tells you, hey, I know you represent the buyer. I know they put an offer of 285. Tell them 290 and I'm good. Like I'll take that. 290, I'm good. Right? I can then, instead of the traditional way, which is, hey, Mr. Buyer, give me your best offer. That'll be the traditional way. At this moment, I'm actually telling the seller, the seller's directing me to tell the buyer, listen, you did 285. We're not countering. We're just letting you know 290, he'll let go. If you're willing to go up to 290, he'll let go. That's $10,000 below the asking price. If you're willing to go to 290, he'll let go. So now you're disclosing info versus having people bid what is their highest and best. Does that make sense? To disclose particular information, you have to get permission from one side or from the other, whatever it is. I thought we can say, since you told me I must tell the seller. Okay. So what you said right here, hold on. This is when you represent one party but not the other. So if I represent the seller and the buyer shows up and says, hey, Bruno, he's a customer. So I have to be fair to him and say, hey, since you told me, I don't represent you. So careful with what you tell me. All right? Because again, that's a single agency. I represent the seller. So if the buyer gives me info, I will give my client. Right? And vice versa. If I represent the buyer and I find information from the seller, I will let my buyer know. Now, Mr. Seller, just so you know, I don't represent you, so anything you tell me. Or Mr. Buyer, just so you know, I don't represent you, so careful what you tell me. Right? That's what it is. All right, so this is correct in a single agency. When it's dual agency, it's a little different. All right. Rose says, I bought a condo and my broker was also the seller's broker. Okay? Did they disclose that to you, Rose? Did the broker say, hey, I represent the seller as well? Did the broker explain to you, Rose, that there are certain things that you might say that could influence the transaction? Did it tell you that if they don't represent you as a buyer's agent specifically, anything you say will be related to the seller in this case, right? That's the key about agency. That's what you guys need to understand. All right, Rose says yes. Perfect. So, but this is what you guys need to understand. Clearly identify, right? Edith, you went through this in the morning. Clearly identify what agency is, right? Which is employer-employee relationship. Clearly identify what agency is and the different types of agency and what people can expect from you. For instance, as a transaction broker, this relationship is not an agency. That means you're not an agent. If you're not an agent, you do not represent the parties. Okay? As a transaction broker, the licensee does not owe either party the duty of putting his or her interests ahead of the other party's interests. I don't represent the seller. I don't represent the buyer. I'm just helping you guys conclude the transaction. I'll help you fill out paperwork. That's it. I might give you a few suggestions here and there of what you need, but that's it. I'm not going to go above and beyond. That's what the transaction broker says. I'm not going to go above and beyond for one party or the other because I don't represent you. You understand? I'll open the house, but you'll walk the house by yourself. Don't ask for my opinion on the house. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference. Okay, not everybody knows how to explain this, and that's why a lot of people, I was just saying this morning, that's why a lot of agents just have the form that's required in the state of New Jersey, and most states have some type of form. They just slide this with the first documentation that, like an offer or listing, whatever, and they slide this there and say, hey, sign right there. You don't have to date it. I'll put dates later. Just sign right there, right? And then later on, Because this is supposed to be presented. We're going to go over this in a second. Again, it's supposed to be presented at the first meeting. So later on, you're going to change this. Okay, I'm going to check my records. I met with my client on August 15th, right? It is now November 24th. My first time with the client was August 15th. So I'm going to put the date August 15th. It's already signed. So I'm backdating a document that I never knew how to explain. Okay? This is important for state exam, and this is important in real life. You need to be able to explain to the client what they can expect from you. Or if you're a transaction broker, you need to be able to explain to your customer what they can expect from you. Right? So, transaction broker works with both parties to arrive at an agreement for the sale or rental of the property and helps facilitate the closing. The broker is primarily a manager of the transaction, assisting both parties equally. All right, Rose says it went smooth. So being represented by both sides, representing both sides, it went smooth. Of course. Of course, Rose, it's going to go smooth. You know why? Because you're only dealing with one party. With the realtor that represents both. That's always the best. Almost always the best. Right? They're getting the full commission. It's their interest to close this as quick as possible and make it as smooth as possible. And if they're professional, it was never about the money. It was about happy clients. Right? Because Rose, you're saying that it went smooth. If it went smooth on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would it be for you to recommend this realtor to someone else? Let me know in the chat real quick. If you went that smooth from 1 to 10, 10 being like, yeah, definitely, 100%, I will recommend. How likely would it be for you to recommend this this realtor that helped you? It says 10, okay? Ahmed says likely. Kinda. 10. Always, okay? So Rose says always, Lula says 10, Ahmed says 10. Yet, guys, Lula's getting her license. Right? Rose is getting her license. Ahmed's getting his license. They would recommend, definitely, but then they decide to get their license. It was so smooth. She even says perfect 10. It was so smooth, you know what? I'm going to steal business from him. He was great or she was amazing. I'm going to get into this business and steal business from them because they were so great. I'm just messing with you guys. But you know what I'm trying to say here? Like, I will always recommend, but let me be competition. At the end of the day, yes. That's what I usually say as well, right here. There's lots to go around. So much money out there and so many properties and old properties, new properties. But you know what? Nobody is competition. The only competition you have is yourself, period. And I see that here at the office as an example. Right? Any office, actually, but let's say here at the office, I see that. There's agents that I think sometimes some agents might feel like a little jealous. Oh, how come this person is always popping up in the chat as closing, as listing, as this, as that? Why is this person always popping up? Well, they're putting in the work. They're doing it. They want to succeed. You can either be jealous of their success, or you can see that they are a perfect 10, like you guys are just said right now about the agents that represented Rose. Be a perfect 10, and you can aspire to the same. Like, I wish all of you guys would be 100% successful as some of our agents here are. I wish all of you. I mean, not here at the Realty. All of you. But unfortunately, just like some of our agents here at the Realty, right? Like, just like some of them, not everybody's going to be 100% serious about this. Okay? I've said before, and Ed is here, and he knows exactly, right? Kelly, for instance, Ed's wife, she hit the ground running. She hit the ground running. So she as soon as she got their license, she was already like booming, going at it, getting offers, and trying to get listings, right? She just got her first commercial listing, so she's been kicking it, and she has less than 1 year in her license. So, okay. Rose says why they don't include the unsubscribe button. I'm a little lost on that one. Why don't they include the unsubscribe? Was that for me, Rose? Anyway, Edward says good network. Good network will always help. Yeah. Rose, are you trying to? Oh, the pop commercial. Okay. I don't know. So fun. All right, guys. So again, uh, you can either. I appreciate that, Rose. So you can either be the successful person that knows all the details, and this is very very important. Uh, that 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 always goes above and beyond for your clients. You can be that person. I'm telling you, referrals. The reason why Mario, for instance, I always talk about Mario as an example, or Kelly as an example, like Ed's wife, is they deal great with clients. At least that's what I see. That's what I feel. So they deal great with clients, and clients just, hey, experience was so. Even if you don't close, guys, even if you don't close, if you provide an amazing experience, even if you don't close, sometimes it's the seller, sometimes it's the buyer. Even if you don't close, if they feel like you're the one, you're the perfect 10, the smooth one, like Rose was describing, referrals. You know how many people, look, today Erica just passed the state exam. Erica was my student 5 years ago. Life happened. But she's referred so many people without getting her license, and now she got her license. You see my point? Okay? Take care of your people. They will refer. You don't have to close every time. I mean, we'd love to close every time, but take care of them. Client is more important than the money. The money will come. I can guarantee you guys. The money will come. All right, so back to this. Rose, that was my infomercial, right? I'm glad you did not unsubscribe. That was my infomercial. Like, hey, be successful. Tina says, when I was buying my house, the people I bought from went with my agents to buy their new house behind their agent's back. Oh, all the time. All the time. This happens all the time. But sometimes it's the agent that poaches the clients. Okay, there's a lot of agents that do that. A lot of agents that try to steal clients. So be careful with that. Okay? Make sure you never leave your babies alone. That's all I can say. All right. Consumer information statement. So in the state of New Jersey, one of the things that's required this agency disclosure, it's the CIS. All the time, Tina. Guarantee you. Again, that's why Mario gets a lot of business. That's why Mac gets a lot of business. That's why Isabel gets a lot of business. So a lot of the people here, and in all agencies, usually it's being that good. And when I say that good, is treating clients. You might suck at your profession, but clients, when they're going through the experience, we had this conversation in property management. We had this conversation in going to a restaurant. The food might not be the best. Good, it's not the best, right? But that quality of the service, that's why people go to a restaurant most of the times, right? Barely ever you go to a restaurant like, that steak, and that's what I want, right? They want to. Most people that go to restaurants, they want to take that time off. Like, I don't want to be in the kitchen. I don't want to be cooking. I don't want to be. I don't want to have a mess at the house. So you go somewhere else and let somebody else take care of you. That is key. That is key. All right. So moving forward, CIS. So the CIS, not to be confused with CSI, right? CIS is Consumer Information Statement. This is a, as it says here, agency disclosure. So where it says CIS disclosure, and being a disclosure, this is not a contract. Another thing that a lot of agents don't understand and don't know how to explain is this. People get scared, like they just met you, and here you go with a paper and say, hey, sign this, right? People get scared. Like, oh, I'm getting into a contract already. No, it's just a disclosure. Mr. Seller, Mrs. Buyer, whatever. This is just a disclosure of ways that I could represent you. It is in no way any commitment to representation or the contract, right? So all I'm telling you is, and everybody's required to present this. Every agent's required to present this. All I'm telling you is that you being the seller, I can represent you as a seller's agent or just as a transaction broker where I don't represent you. I'm just helping you go through to the transaction. Still giving you the best service, but without full representation. Or if the opportunity arises in the future, right, where I find the buyer myself versus another agent, I could be a disclosure agent. So Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, just a disclosure. We're not getting into any contract. The signature that we require right here is to make sure that I presented this to you and you fully understand what you're getting yourself into if you choose to move forward, whether with me or with another agent. These are the agent duties if they represent you this way, that way, or whatever. You guys understand? It's as simple as this. Simple as this. It's disclosure only, period. So licensees are required to provide, right here, licensees are required to provide a consumer information statement to all sellers, buyers, landlords, and tenants of 1 to 4 family residences and vacant 1 family lots. So this is only for residential. Okay? It is wise that you have it also for commercial, but not a requirement. For residential, yes, requirements. Okay? Every state has some form of disclosure. Here in the state of New Jersey, we call it CIS, Consumer Information Statement. Okay, hold on a second. I got a question here from Tina. What if someone hires you to be their agent to sell their home, then they're not happy with you? Can they find someone else? Okay, that's an iffy subject, because if there's an active listing and they go somewhere else without reason, right? You cannot just say, hey, I'm unhappy with you. You have to specify the reasons and have the broker sign the dismissal of that listing without prejudice, meaning that you can go somewhere else right away. If not, then you're bound by the contract. So if you, to address your question real quick and move forward, you have a 6-month contract, right? And 3 months later, so halfway, 3 months, 3 months later, you stop the contract. If the house is sold, guys, if the house is sold during this period, up to the termination date, until up to the original 6-month termination date, if it's sold within this period, then I'm still entitled to commission, even though you went somewhere else. I'm still entitled to commission. So the only way you can, as a new agent, as the agent that took over, for instance, for them to get full commission or commission, right, is if at this point right here in the 3-month, Tina, You contacted the broker and said, hey, listen, I'm not happy with your guys' services. I'm not happy with this realtor. He's not showing the house. He's not this. He's not that. Specify the reasons. And then you will withdraw from the market, right? With cause, right? For cause. So there was a reason why you backed out. It's not because you felt like it. There's a reason. If there's a reason, then you also want that broker to sign stating that they will not pursue any further terms of the contract, that it ends today. So this allows you to erase the 6 months. And it stops right there on the 3 months. Okay, so anything from the 3 months on where you stopped, it could be a new agency. So now it's a new listing period with somebody else. You got it? So is it possible that they don't like you or the way you're doing things and they go somewhere else? It is. It's always possible. But they have to specify the reason. Otherwise, any sale that happens within the original listing period, any sale that happens belongs to me, the listing agent. The original listing agent. All right, next, licensees. Licensees are required to provide the CIS at the first contact with a customer prior to any, right here, required to provide prior to any discussion of the customer's financials, matters, or motivation for buying or selling. So like I was saying, guys, the first thing we have to do when we meet someone that wants to buy or sell, or when they call you saying they want to buy or sell, the first thing we do is stop right there. I need to disclose some stuff to you required by the state of New Jersey. Is that okay? Okay, as soon as they say that's okay, we start. But again, this is law, but I challenge every single one of you, right? Ed's already smiling. I challenge every single one of you to call an agent and say you want to buy or you want to sell. Call them. You say you want to buy and they're going to be like, how many houses? Like, what you looking for? Like, right away, I got you. No problem. How many houses? How many bedrooms? What else do you need? You want me to rub your feet too? Let's go. Right? Right there and then, they bending over just to get the listing or to get the purchase or whatever. But they have to, guys. By law. They have to provide this before anything else. State exam, this is what it is. In real life, this is what it is. I don't know where you're going to go or where you're going to be trained, but this is the first thing that must be always there. And just so you guys know, a lot of agencies do not allow you to get paid, even though the transaction closed. They do not allow you to get paid until the file is complete. And one of the requirements of file to be complete is the CIS. Must be there. Okay? Ed just wrote how much you have. That's what Kelly does. Somebody calls and says, I want to buy. She goes like, how much you have? Show me the money. Then we'll talk. Yeah. These Colombians, I tell you. You're there listening? Sorry. It's true. Colombians, I tell you. How much you have. I can even picture her with her voice saying that. That is true. She would. Yeah. Ed, you're right. She would. Terrible. These realtors are terrible. All right. Next. Look. As I was saying, if the first contact is by phone, the licensee is required to verbally explain the agency relationships available and what each means. The CIS must be then provided as a follow-up. So if over the phone you disclose briefly what it is, then once you sit down with them right after, here's the paper, let me explain again in detail and now sign. Failure to do so can potentially result in license suspension or revocation. All right? Look, while a customer is not required to sign the CIS initially, he or she will need to acknowledge receiving the CIS on subsequent offers, sales contracts, and leases. Signed CISs must be kept for 6 years from the date of the sale, closing, or lease execution. Gotta keep it for 6 years because that's the statute of limitations in New Jersey. I highly recommend you guys go to this link whenever you have a chance. You have the physical book or you have the online version, whatever. The PDF, you can click on it. These are all I'm not in this book. Okay, I already changed it. But these are all clickable. You guys can take advantage of that. Or copy and paste. But get the CIS. Start learning what it says and how to prepare it, okay? Because you're going to need it in every single transaction, Kelly. Every single one. Okay? Before you ask how much you have. See, Ed just ratted you out. Just told me how you... no, I wanted you here. Not anymore. After this one. Nope. You don't have to come to the camera. That's it. You don't go how much you have. You say, hey, listen, here's the CIS. Let me explain to you how things are, how it goes. Customer service first. Anyway. And don't come to the camera on me. Ed is the one that ratted you out, not me. All right, next. An agency is the legal relationship created when a broker and a client agree to have the broker represent the client when dealing with parties. You guys already know this. The broker is referred to as the agent. The client is referred to as the principal. Simple. The agency is created by a contractual agreement, not by who pays the commission. You guys already know this as well. Whoever pays you is whoever agreed to pay. Simple. All right. Disclosure duties. As discussed in chapter 26, so this is very recent, right? It was the previous chapter. So I'm going to go very quickly. As discussed in chapter 26, if you're dealing with out-of-state properties, you have to have a public offering statement registered with the state. You have to provide a 7 calendar day rescission right for buyers of the properties instead of the 3 business days in Jersey. You have to have a secured, secured third-party escrow account for all the buyer's deposits held until closing. That's the escrow protection right there. Just like in the States, it's the same thing. Developer financial assurances provided to the commission, showing that the developer is financially able to complete all the work as promised. Establishment of the Bureau of Subdivided Land Sales Control to be responsible for administration of the act, and registration of the property with the Bureau of Subdivided Land Sales Control prior to marketing, acknowledging that the developer submits to New Jersey jurisdiction. So they say, hey, something is wrong, I'll get sued in New Jersey and not in the state where the property is located. Also, designation of a New Jersey licensed broker as a broker of record, and of course, standards for all types of advertisement. Material information, guys, you already know this. Anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. So if there's issues with the property that you know about it, you have to disclose. If you don't know about it, you're supposed to ask, right? And there's intentional misrepresentation, there's there's negligent misrepresentation, and then there's honest or innocent misrepresentation. Now, these first two you guys don't want. The third one, nobody wants misrepresentation, but you're not as liable because you're not the expert in the area. So if you know something, then you must disclose whatever you know. If you don't know, then you must be, you must have the skill or the diligence, sufficient diligence to be able to say, well, that's with a plumber, that's with an electrician, that's with a home inspector, that's with a city inspector. and so on. So you have to have enough knowledge, skills, and diligence to point to whoever is responsible for it. So again, whatever you know, you must disclose. Whatever is visible, water leakage in the basement, mold inside the living structure, cracks in the structure, foundation. So if you see something that you easily identify, let the buyer know. Let the seller know as well. Hey, listen, you have these issues, right? You cannot hide it. Now, the required disclosures, we mentioned this in the national portion, state portion says exactly the same. These disclosures do not include social conditions or psychological impairments, because these do not affect the physical, right? Physical condition of the property. Very important. Anything that does not affect the physical condition of the property does not need to be disclosed. This is true in every state. Okay? Now, what if you don't know about something? What if the seller knows about something? Then you have to tell the seller, hey, listen, I'm like your doctor. If you don't tell me all the problems you have or the house has, how can I properly market the property? Right? So, sellers, if you hide anything from me, seller, you could get sued later. You could get sued as well. Especially in the state of New Jersey, it's one of the states that has the longest statute of limitations. State of New Jersey, 6 years. So seller, if you hide something now, up to 6 years from now, the buyer, the new owner, has the right to come after you. They can take you to court. Okay? No. So Lula's asking, you can't tell the buyer someone died here 2 months ago? No. Somebody dying on the property, how does that affect the physical condition or the value of the property? The structural value. Because look, what we pay for is structural value. So in the area where it's located, right? So how does somebody dying there affect the value of the property? That will become how we perceive death is a psychological thing. How we perceive that. Okay? A lot of people are comfortable with the situation, knowing that, hey, we all gotta die someday. Right? That's a lot of people take that stance. Other people, I'll go to that. Other people are like, oh my God, somebody died, I'll never buy this house. Never. Walk away, right? So things love your question. So as far as death itself does not affect the property. Now that Lula's developing a little bit more here on the question, look what a root canal does to you, huh? Tricky questions. She even waited. You saw that? Like, let me throw this. If somebody died here 2 months ago, and then she already had it written out, right? Trick question. Let Bruno speak for like 10 minutes, and like, right there. What if it was due to a faulty elevator? See, Lula, the issue that somebody died is still now relevant to the value of the house. A faulty elevator, whether it caused death or not, a faulty elevator, yes, changes the value. It's not the fact that it caused a death, it's the fact that it's faulty, and it could cause more deaths or more damage to the property. So yes, faulty elevator is physical condition of the property. Must be disclosed. Yes. Okay? So this point right here is moot. This is what matters. I'm not saying that people's lives don't matter. What I'm saying is, for the transaction itself, this is what matters. Okay? See what you started? You see what you started, Lula? Now I'm getting a bunch of questions. Here I am trying to end the night and a bunch of questions. All right, Vanessa. I'm just messing with you. I do like questions to a certain extent. Love it to a certain extent. All right, so where see, I even lost the question here. Don't say these things, Vanessa. Don't say these things. Wink. All right. What should the agent do if the seller doesn't want the agent to disclose that there's asbestos in the property? Question, Vanessa. Let's go with common sense here, right? And I know you know the answer, but I'm glad you brought it up. Let's go with common sense. If there's issues with the property and the seller's addressing you not to disclose that to anybody else, do you think those are lawful instructions that we must obey? What do you think we must do at this point, Vanessa? What do you think we should do? And everybody else, you can chime in. What should we do if we have a seller that says, let's hide this? What should we do? Okay. Oh, Ed, I know this is your answer, not Kelly's answer. Definitely. Tina goes like, tell them you cannot do that. Lulu says disclose. Ahmed says can't represent you. Celine says get away, terminate. And advise them that's not a great idea. Okay, great. Perfect. Rose says, let's take an extra step. I'm going to report him to the broker. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. And let the broker handle it. Yep. So yeah, guys, if you know of anything, remember, you are a salesperson. So if you don't know how to handle the situation, be able to say, well, seller, you cannot do that, or we cannot do that, then relay it to your broker. Your broker should be able to help you in talking to the seller regarding this. Cheryl, are they able to determine the history of insurance claims, even those that have been denied? Maybe. Maybe. I have no clue. Possible. So nationwide, Cheryl. Nationwide. Just like there's the MIB, and no, it's not the Men in Black, the Medical Information Bureau, where they put all your information regarding medical claims, right? Yes, you are a database somewhere, okay? Same way they have those insurance claims, health insurance. They also have property insurance claims. That's called a comprehensive loss underwriting exchange. So this report that's available by ChoicePoint, right? That's the database, ChoicePoint, shows insurance claims within the past 5 years. Now, active or inactive, open or closed, accepted or rejected. All claims that are against the property will show in this report. So before a company, let's say we're about to close and you need to have property insurance. Before we can close the insurance, they will run the clue report from ChoicePoint and see if there's any claims against the property and figure out what the premium is going to be for property. So yes, there is a way called clue report. Okay? They only show for the past 5 years though. Covered. CIS, we talked about it. You guys know we have to disclose the buyer's inability to acquire financing. We must present all offers immediately. So now I'm going to go a little faster. When the seller's agent investigates the property, he or she is required by the commission regulations to disclose the resulting information to all prospective buyers. So we already talked about that as well. Cheryl, yes, 5 years. For the past 5 years. This is the database that they pull. 5 years. Okay. Right? New Jersey has something called off-site conditions. Can anybody tell me what off-site means? Swamp. The swamp could be on-site, maybe. What does off-site mean? I'm waiting on my business partner to make a snide remark, but not yet. I guess he's sleeping. All right, so off-site, guys. What does off-site mean? Okay. Maybe. I'm just asking what off-site mean. You're telling me stuff that's happening. Right? The train passing by. Off-site. Anybody? Nobody knows what off-site means? Like just one person, please? Besides Ahmed in the swamp with a train passing by. Off-site, not on-site. So Lula, close. Very close. On-site, that's what it is. Off-site. Rose says not near. Cheryl says not at the home itself. All right, Ahmed came with a nice description. Off-property issues that can affect the living comfort. There you go. Probably. Yep. All right. And Nadit says environmental hazard. So, okay. Let me address one thing, because it's going to be an issue when you guys take the exam. Site is not the home. You guys are writing home, house. Site is not that. Site is the parcel of land that you own. So if we're saying off-site, this is mine. This is my neighbor, John. Okay? This is my other neighbor, Adam, as an example. Right? Here at the corner is a gas station. Right up here is the train station, or the train, the railroad, right? So just going with Mr. Vidur's mentioning, what he mentioned before. And over here, right next to John, is the swamp. So, very important, guys. When you own property, stop addressing it as the home. When you own property, you own the land where the home is. Therefore, you have the rights to the home. But technically, what you own, if you guys remember from legal descriptions, what you own is the land. In fact, it's called an estate in land, asset or ownership in a property. So home is where you sleep, is where you live. But what you own is the land where the property is located. You can build a new home, but you cannot destroy the land. Do you guys understand? You can remove it, the land is still yours. So stop using it as a house. Very, very important that you do this. Because if we're talking about off-site, well, Adam's property is off-site. This is on-site, is whatever's mine within these boundary lines. Remember legal descriptions again. Off-site could be my neighbor Adam, could be my neighbor John, could be the swamp, could be the railroad, could be the gas station. These are all off-site because they're not on my land. Right? By the way, the house is right here. That's it. Little tiny thing right there. Okay? They're not on my land. So off-site. On-site is my land. Off-site, neighbor. Okay? So why New Jersey, right? And other states have something similar to, since this was in 1995 that this lawsuit came out. So why does New Jersey have a law specifically to off-site conditions? How does a property next to you affect yours? How? I mean, the gas station is so far away. We still have Adam's house. Maybe there's Dave's house. Maybe there's still Anna's house. I don't know. There's so many people. The gas station's so far away. How does that affect our property? If there's a spill, right? Yep. Leakage, spills, lines running underneath the ground, etc. If there's a spill, depending on the grading, right? Depending on the grading, this could all spill to our property, for instance. Depending on how the waters flow underneath the surface, it could come to our property. That's why a buyer must be aware. Now, obviously, the gas station you can see, right? But there are certain things you cannot see. Okay, for instance, environmental hazard discharge sites, so waste dumping sites, electrical transformer substations, and overhead utility transmitting lines conducting 240,000 volts or more. Harrison, go to Harrison. There's one right there. Underground gas transmission lines, sanitary landfill facilities, airport safety zones, public wastewater treatment facilities. All these could affect your property. So New Jersey created a rule for off-site conditions, and it says new constructions, every contract must talk about new constructions, right? And the seller is required to provide the buyer with the notice of availability of the list at the time that the seller and the buyer enter into a sales contract for newly constructed residential property. So the seller is the developer, right? The builder, for instance. The builder is aware of these things because for them to build, they had to get permits. For them to get permits, they had to be aware of everything, period. They knew about it. So they have to provide this list to the buyer, and the buyer can cancel the contract within 5 business days of execution. If it's a resale does not include the same 5 days. So what we're saying is, if Zaleen was able to live there, so can you. Simple. All right? If it's a new construction, remember, new construction, you got 5 days to cancel. If it's a resale, you don't have 5 days to cancel. You have the standard, whatever the contract says. All right, that's something to remember. All right, Consumer Fraud Act. Consumer Fraud Act. We already talked about this earlier. Consumer fraud includes any unconscionable commercial practice, deception, fraud, false pretense, false promises, misrepresentations, or knowing concealment, suppression, or omission of any material fact. So, we talked about it. If you know something, say something, right? Didn't we go over this? All right. So there's, again, the Act provides three ways consumer fraud may be committed. Affirmative misrepresentation. That means making an untrue statement, fact, whether or not the licensee knew the statement was untrue. Includes negligent, unintentional misrepresentation. Knowing omission. So you know about it, you're concealing, you're suppressing, or omitting a material fact that is known to the licensee. And law violation. Violating statutes or regulations that are specific to the situation and were enacted to interpret the act itself. Here are the penalties in New Jersey. Ready? Penalties for violating the act include a fine of up to $10,000 for first offense and up to $20,000 for a second offense and each subsequent offense. In addition, the violator can be ordered to pay 3 times the amount of damages awarded to the injured party and attorney fees. And if you don't pay, of course, you could be arrested. Not bad, right? Guys, remember, always put $20,000 aside for your mistakes. Just kidding. We have something called errors and omission insurance to protect you. The problem with errors and omissions is that it does not cover fraud. So if you do any of these intentionally, you know about it and you're hiding it, insurance will not protect you. No insurance protects from crimes. Okay, and fraud is a crime. Okay? Now, how can you avoid these penalties? Simple. You prove that you did not know. You prove that did not know that the information provided was false or deceptive. You made a diligent effort to ascertain the truth. Like you tried to research, you tried to ask, right? And not my monkey. I was relying on information in a home inspection report from a government employee or from a seller's property condition disclosure statement. I did not have to know because it was somebody else's job to know. Right? Simple. Risk management. Guys, we talked about this. We had a whole chapter on it. One of the ways to reduce risk, and for us the most important, right, is written disclosure. Disclose. That's key. You want to be healthy in this business, healthy like a healthy business. Everything in writing. Simple. For everything else, insurance. Okay? To protect yourselves, to guard yourselves as much as possible, things in writing. Document every single thing in your transaction. For everything else, insurance. Okay? All right, next we got conduct of business. And you guys know we have, so we already talked about this earlier, but you have general duties to the public, right? Within transaction duties, okay? You have the obligation to deal honestly and fairly with customers. They must treat customers with reasonable care and skill. You cannot ignore somebody because they're not your client. You still have to disclose certain things, as we said earlier, right? In addition to suffering discipline for violating real estate laws and regulations, licensees can incur liability for any of the following: breach of their fiduciary duties, like you didn't care, or you did not obey, or did not hold proper accounting, right? Failure to meet the standard of care, conflict of interest, or misrepresentation. Being guilty of any of the above could lead you to losing the seller or the buyer. Not a big deal. We lose a seller, we lose a buyer, we get another one, right? Not a big deal, right? It could mean loss of commission or other compensation. Not a big deal. I lost money here, but I'll get money there. Here is where it becomes a big deal. A civil lawsuit or even criminal prosecution of your license, right? Or licensee, I'm sorry. And disciplinary sanctions, such as license suspension or revocation. So losing a client in commission, thank you, next, right? It's easy. We get more. There's enough to go around. Getting sued and potentially getting your license suspended or revoked, no good. All right? Simple. Tilla. Who remembers Tilla? Let me know real quick in the chat. Tilla. Who remembers Tilla? What is the Truth in Lending Act, or Tilla? YouTubers, you can answer this as well. Waiting. There you go. Getting there. Disclosure of all costs in the contract, kinda. Disclosure for all money loaned, maybe. Okay. Anybody else? YouTubers, Zoomers, come on, help me out. Cheryl says the lender must provide a loan estimate within 3 business days of the application submission. Great, but you're still not telling me what Tilla really is. Rose says trust, intention, liability, accountability. I like it, but no, it's Truth in Lending Act. But I like the way you put it there. Joel, thank you for joining us. I was asking, what is Truth in Lending Act, or Tilla? Joel now does his own hours. I like that. We're almost at the end. I make my hours. I skip a few here and there. I'll go to the morning class. I'll come to the evening class. Show up 10 hours later. Okay. All right. This is not that bad, Joel. I'll tell you. When it used to be the class, like in person, when somebody's late, I would stop the whole class and say, hey, go ahead. Do the walk of shame. Go ahead. Sit down. Everybody stop and stare at them. Oh, yeah. Walk of shame. Yep. Can you tell that I love my students? Anyway. All right, let's see what we got. Lula says, have to provide written disclosure of all costs. What kind of costs? Ahmed says cost rates. Ed says disclose ARP. It's APR. Close. APR. Very close. Lula says credit terms and rates. Rose, I know it was a guess and I like it because the Tilla, I like how you came up with a reason for this acronym. She went trust, intention, liability, accountability. TILA. Love it. Jen says this is the original disclosure to the buyer regarding their loan. Okay. So, going back here. It's full disclosure of credit terms and rates and APR, which is the true cost of financing. True cost of financing. Joel CD is at the end. Tilla is something that comes up front. And when Cheryl talked about the loan estimate, right, it's correct. It's one of the things that must be given up front with Tilla. So what they did is integrated all these disclosures. So that's Regulation Z, TILA and Regulation Z. Now, we're not talking about that here. We're talking about advertisement when it comes to TILA. So I just wanted to do a recap of what it was. So when it comes to TILA and Regulation Z, there are specific triggering terms. We talked about this in chapter 17. There's specific triggering terms. What does it mean, triggering terms? Right? Triggering terms means it triggers or activates disclosures. Triggering terms says if you say this, then you have to say this as well, right? That's when we include to a qualified buyer, estimated, approximate, based on this APR, based on this credit, based on that. So that's additional disclosures because something you said or posted triggers those disclosures, okay? For instance, if the ad includes a dollar amount or percentage of down payment, say, hey, only $5,000 down, right? If the ad says 30-year loan only, right? If the ad says pay $1,500 a month only, or if the ad says 5% only, like if they are specific, if they're not liberal terms, like generic terms, right? If they are this specific, then they must disclose, and we talked about this in chapter 17 again, right? We must disclose the terms of repayment over the entire life of the loan. We must disclose the dollar amount or percentage of down payment specifically. We must disclose the APR, okay? APR. We must disclose that the payment indicated, the $1,500 a month, does not include taxes and insurance, because he can't. We don't know the tax and insurance for that particular property, right? Also, the rate or payment and time and period of changes of any rate that is not fixed, that it's a future rate of any ARM or adjustable rate mortgage. So these are triggering terms that force you to disclose these. If you don't want to have to disclose additional stuff, then it's easy. House for sale, financing available. What does that tell you? Absolutely nothing, right? Negotiable terms. Well, everything is negotiable, isn't it? Loan assumption at a specific percentage rate. If it's available in that particular loan, yes. Specific amount of mortgage available. Or owner financing. Right? So these do not require anything else. But we have to include qualified buyer, APR, printed close to disclosures printed close to related information and not concealed in any way. And if it's an oral ad, TV, radio, and so on, they must be stated clearly and providing a toll-free number for additional information as they do. Okay. All right. This is real quick. We talked about it also. Referral salesperson. If you do referrals, right, you must have a written contract. This is nationwide, same thing. If you do referrals, you must have a written contract with either the prospective tenant, so this is for rentals, and the contract must include services to be performed, the date and term of the contract, and fees to be paid for the services, and the agent's refund policy. Okay. Next, in performing rental referral activities, the agency and its licensees must comply with the following regulations. The agency must provide the customer with a written contract that clearly states, like I said, the service is providing, the fee they're charging, it's just repeating the same thing, right? The agency must not advertise or refer clients to addresses or properties that do not exist or are not available for rent. It sucks. There's a bunch of them out there. Okay? Agency must have permission of the land. This is common sense, right? You cannot sell or rent my phone. You cannot sell or rent my phone without my permission. So you got to have written permission from the landlords to sell their property or rent their property. Same thing. Agency must consistently check, this is important, must consistently check an advertised property, advertised every day. If it's listed, every 3 days. Now, this might be a question. A property that's simply listed, right? The agent must confirm every 3 days that it's still available. A property that's being actively advertised on Facebook, Craigslist, newspapers, and so on, we must check every day to see if it's still available. This is for rentals, okay? Must check every day if it's still available. That might be a question in the state exam. Advertised and listed are two different things. We list on the MLS for other agents to see. That's why they say, hey, if it's between agents, 3 days, okay? Advertising is Facebook, Craigslist, so social media, flyers, websites, newspapers, and so on, right? So every day to make sure that our advertisement to the general public is accurate. The agency must have enough telephone lines and employees to receive and answer calls from their clients. The agency must not charge a fee higher than $25 before the tenant obtains housing unless the higher fee is deposited into the agent escrow account and held until completion of the contract, or unless the agency posts a cash security as approved by the commission. Agency must keep 1-year copies of all contracts with customers, all written referral permission statements from landlords, and all records showing unit availability was verified. And the agency must also post these regulations in its offices and provide a copy to consumers when requested. Broker cooperation. What do you guys think this is? Anyone? What does that mean, broker to broker? Be specific. What does that mean? Relationship. I'm going to start doing like you guys do. Like, I'll give you a word at a time. Like Lula did the question before. Like, you're doing the same. Like, you're even worse than what Lula did before. Like, broker to broker. I'm like, what does that mean? Relationship. What does that mean? Association of brokers, says Joel. Like, come on, guys. Broker cooperation. Rose says chain of brokers. Slavery all over again. We're going to enslave, we're going to have a chain of brokers. That's what it is. There you go. You're going to link them together and drag them. That's it. Some of them, I think they deserve it. I agree, Rose. Guys, broker cooperation. Lula's laughing so much he's going to need another root canal after this. Ahmed says, expose their work. Sorry, I'm having fun today. Expose their work. Okay. And then to make sure, he says broker to broker exposure. I have to show you guys this. I cannot make this stuff up. I gotta expose Mr. Badur here. Broker cooperation, guys. You're close to it. Like, okay, there you go. Brandon just researched what it was. It's a deal done between two brokers. Okay? Rose says broker agreement. Lula says broker must allow another broker to show their listings. Like listing an MLS right away. Correct. All right, cool. Broker exposure. Bam, you're exposed. I saw what you did. That's it. I'm a broker, you're a broker, I expose you. That's it. So, it's the final week, guys. It's Thanksgiving week. We got to give thanks for what we have, right? And you have a half comedian for an instructor. I'm sorry. Almost pursued the career. Anyway, so broker cooperation. What we're saying is, right here. What we're saying here is that brokers are required to cooperate with other brokers, or broker to broker for short. That's what it is. Okay? So this means broker to broker cooperation. We cannot say, what we're saying here is, guys, I love how people read things, copy paste. So everybody, pay attention. Broker cooperation simply says, if I work with New Direction Realty, and you work for Remax, and I have a listing, I cannot reject you because you're from a different agency. Unless the seller clearly stated that that's what they want, okay? Very important. So broker cooperation is a requirement. So make sure you guys remember that. If the seller does not want it, if the seller says, well, Bruno, I don't like those Remax people. Bruno, I don't like those white. You know what? I don't like anybody. I just like you, Bruno, your agency. Keep it in-house. Keep it in-house. Then we have to have him sign what's called a waiver of broker cooperation form. Mr. Seller, you understand that if I do this, if I keep it in-house, I cannot advertise it on the MLS. Okay? You do understand that if I do that, I'm only advertising to our agents. And if we're advertising to our agents, then your exposure is minimal. No MLS, within our agency only, your exposure is minimal. So you do understand this might take a little bit longer, and you might get less money because it does take long. You guys understand? They have to sign this, saying that they understand it will take longer, they might get less money, but they want to keep it away from everybody else. Waiver of broker cooperation. Now, Lula, I did not ignore, but I did bypass until I was done with this. But exclusive agency could go on the MLS. This is like the exclusive. This is called a pocket listing. All right? I'm holding on to it. Only I have it. Nobody can touch it. Okay? Exclusive agency and exclusive right to sell do have the option to go on the MLS. While this one, no MLS. So they have to sign something. It isn't exclusive, but without MLS. They have to sign something like don't advertise to others. Simple. When you see Attorney General memorandum, we're talking about law against discrimination. The worst nation in the world. Right? Isn't it? There's so many nations out there. This is like the worst in the world. Discrimination. The second worst is procrastination. But discrimination is the worst one. So, even though we have federal laws, guys, we have federal laws regarding discrimination, fair housing laws, you guys know, talked about it, fair housing laws. Even though we have those, New Jersey says we want to be tougher. And because we want to be tougher than anybody else, want to be tough on discrimination, every single listing must include the Attorney General Memorandum of Law Against Discrimination. And by the way, This was just updated, so it's not 2013 anymore. This was just updated. Make sure you guys get the latest. You cannot use outdated forms when it comes to these things, right? You shouldn't use outdated forms in anything, but when it comes to discrimination, definitely not, or any other federal laws. So, if the seller disagrees with this, if the seller intends to discriminate, if they don't care about what the Attorney General says, right? Almost like what we hear nowadays. It's my house, I do what I want, right? We hear this all the time. If the seller says, I don't want people from this color or from this religion or from this country or whatever, I don't like these kind of people, so don't bring these people here. You know what? If the seller disagrees with the memorandum or states he intends to discriminate or violate the law, then you, licensee, must refuse the listing. Let me zoom in. Must refuse the listing. There's a lot of properties out there. A lot of properties out there. So don't worry. You don't need somebody that will offend your clients. And believe me, this happens. Offend your clients. Walk away from these. Okay, I don't know what kind of person you are. I hope you guys are not. Sorry. Maybe you'll get upset at me. I hope you guys are not the kind of people that would allow these things to happen. I hope you're not. But I can tell you, if you are one of those, if you are one of those that intends to discriminate, that likes to discriminate, that doesn't care about another race, about another color, about another religion, or whatever, if you are one of those, then this profession should not be for you at all. Okay? Because by law, we cannot. And you could lose your license, you can get sued with no dollar amount. So whatever the judge decides as an amount of penalty, like punishment, that's what it is. Right? So if you intend to discriminate, by the way, no refunds, but if you intend to discriminate, quit now. That I can tell you. Okay? If you intend to help people change the world the way it's supposed to be, like without discrimination, stay here a little bit longer. All right, pricing the property. We are, by the way, on page 438. Pricing the property. So one of the things that we're not required to be appraisers. We're not required to be the experts in analyzing markets and property values, right? But we are required to have understanding of the basic understanding of valuations. We had this in chapter 16, right? We talked about the sales comparison approach, we talked about the cost approach, and even the income approach, right? 3 different approaches to value. We're not required to be the experts, but we are required to have the basic understanding and help our clients, the best of our ability, help our clients determine the value of their house through CMAs. You can never, ever, ever call it an appraisal. You guys already know that, right? Never call it appraisal. The agent, this was chapter 15, real estate markets. The agent should also ensure the seller understands that the selling price is ultimately determined by supply and demand. So how the market is flowing, supply and demand in the local area. The more supply, the lower the demand, the lower the selling price. The less the supply, the higher the demand, the higher the selling price. Okay, very important. Megan's Law, we talked about it in the national portion, but this is actually a New Jersey law. Megan's Law is about sex offenders. Right? A sex offender, convicted sex offender, will be on a registry. Okay? It's a national registry, state registry, county registry. So you're everywhere. If you become a sex offender, you're going to be everywhere. Okay? So back in 1995, Megan's Law, right, came to be. And because of this law, a lot of states replicated the same law. Because of this law, they have to be registered. But New Jersey real estate law says licensees may not provide information about registered sex offenders. So we cannot point them out. We cannot tell our client, hey, sex offender over there. Two houses down, sex offender. Right? You cannot, your next door neighbor, another sex offender. You cannot do that. All right? That's against the law. But you are required to inform in writing where they can get that information. So every contract in New Jersey has a Megan's Law disclosure that says if you are concerned about it, right? All sales contracts that says if you are concerned about it, you can research everything at the NewJerseyStatePolice.org, njsp.org. And that's it, guys. That's all we can do. If they ask us, hey, Bruno, are there any sex offenders in the area? Look, I cannot disclose that to you. Unfortunately, by law, I cannot do so. I cannot even research by law. Always put the by law there because you can't. What I can tell you is you can go to njsp.org or you can go to your county records or whatever. Even municipality might have a link to that and get it from there. All right? Now, why can't we disclose these things? Because a sex offender, whether it's on the second floor or the house next door, the sex offender, again, does not affect the physical value of the property. It's not like you're going to go, hey, you know what, Mr. Seller? Because there's a sex offender in the neighborhood, $50,000 less for this house. Instead of $200,000, $150,000. He comes with a sex offender. So, you know what, that's negative. It's like having a bad roof, right? It doesn't affect the value of the house, right? Do you guys understand this? If you're really concerned, you'll search about it. That's it. I can see from Tina's face, she's already researching. Sorry, Tina, you had such a serious face. I thought that's what you were doing. Oh my God, around me, there's 10. They're everywhere, though, fortunately. All right, cool. Next, prohibited activities. This is going to be very simple, and we're done with this chapter. All these violations, guys, we covered. It's not only in New Jersey, we cover in national law, but all these violations and their penalties. Simple. If you make false promises or substantial misrepresentation, we cover this. Representing more than one party in the same transaction without disclosure. Flagrantly, continually making misrepresentations. Failing to account for money. Demonstrating unworthiness, incompetency, bad faith. Failing to provide a client with a fully executed copy of sale, blah, 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 blah. We covered all these. This is just a summary of all the violations that we covered from day one. Not only New Jersey, because this is common sense to everything. We talked about in the national portion as well, right? But New Jersey. And as far as penalties, see, all these are things that you could do that you'll be disciplined for. Okay? All the way down. Let's go. We're on page 440. If you commit any of these, then the commission, the Real Estate Commission in New Jersey, deems that any of the foregoing violation laws has occurred. It has the power to suspend put your license on probation, suspend or revoke, as you guys already know, but there's more. They can impose a penalty of up to $5,000 for first violation and up to $10,000 for any subsequent violations. Okay? They can also deny further issuance of your real estate license to a repeat or third time offender. So if it's the third time you're doing this, that's it. No more license. Okay? Whether you're violating for the same or different regulations, if you're a repeat offender, they can revoke your license permanently. Okay? And that is it. Any questions? That was a good review, right? A lot of good stuff. All right, cool. So if there's no questions, YouTubers and Zoomers, it's now 8 o'clock. I'm gonna give you guys till I'm gonna give you some extra minutes. So 8:15. So 15 minutes, and we will be right back. YouTubers, I'm gonna close this session and open another one right after. Okay. See you guys in a bit.